Thank you very much. Thank you for the patience because of our technical problems. Today we have roughly 30 minutes, 35, maybe 40, to talk about executive point of view. At the beginning we talked about execution of DevOps days, right? You mentioned that at the beginning, and I would like to tell you how to execute DevOps in the companies, in the corporations. Based on my experience with a company named Grand Parade. I still work in Grand Parade, and we are part of the bigger group Evoke, the company named Evoke. I'm heading the Polish department. In Krakow we have 400 people around. Most of them, all of them actually, are engineers. Yeah, so that's that. I usually don't do the product placement, but today I will do it because I'm very proud of my recent book, the first book that I wrote by myself. Combining agile approach with executive mindset. So how do executives, CTOs, CEOs, and the other guys think about, in general, transforming the organization from the DevOps perspective and from the agile perspective as well. So, before diving into this topic, I would like to ask you the question. We have, some spare time, so I would like to ask you the question: what's DevOps? Mindset. Like it, culture. Ooh, culture. Excuse me? It's a model, lifestyle. Yes, exactly. Many different topics. I reacted on the culture in that way because personally, I deal with the organizational culture every day, right? But usually when we speak to engineers like you guys, and we say, we need to build organizational culture, people are like, what? I don't understand it. I would like to code create my program, right? But not the building culture. But you are exactly right. That's the part of the thing. So we talked about mindset as well as tool chain, right? So obviously we love tools, we love new tools, we love implementing tools, learning new tools. Then we love to write in a CV that we have this and that technology and that tool, right? That's our motivation as well. So yeah, so that's mindset and tool chain or toolkit, whatever we call it. And that's the combination of both. And why? Because are being used by people, right? Technology is one thing, and people are the other thing, right? So from the technology point of view, I'm simplifying, super simplifying. I was a Java developer like 20 years ago, so no, the version of Java I was coding was like, I don't even remember, 1.6 or something like this. But simplifying, we have such a process, right? That we do some coding, development stuff, and then we somehow produce jar file or compile the code, and then we move to operations. Like that's the hot potato exercise, right? Obviously, right now it's not like this, but in the past it was like very siloed organization. So that's that. So when we talk about development, right, focusing on this part, so development, we need to design our product from the features perspective, obviously, but from the architecture perspective as well. So we need to prepare the architecture. We need to program it. We need to then put it to Git, for example, to merge the code together, right? This type of obvious stuff for us, right? Then deployment. We need to implement logging mechanism and so on. So that's one part. And the other part is about running it on production. So monitoring, logging, patching, not so sexy stuff, right? Sometimes it's sexy as we have, production issue, but usually not. Yes? You have a lot of production issues, right? That's right. And that's the open question. Okay, we would like to do that, obviously. Everyone would like to create new code, work on greenfield projects, and so on. On the other hand, we have to do that somehow, or someone needs to do that for us. And obviously, in the middle, there is a gray area because we have various different environments. We have staging environment. We have, first things first, we have development environment on our beautiful, shiny MacBooks, right? Then we have staging. Then we're supposed to have like a user acceptance test or prod-like environment. We have pre-prod environment. Sometimes we have hidden prod, or sometimes we can have hidden pre-prod environment. Obviously, the goal is simple. The data should be replicated from production, right? And why we create all those hidden prod, hidden pre-prod sometimes? Because it's easier to deploy something to production-like environment and say, hey, I'm ready. It's almost on production. It's on production. It's just hidden, right? And our metrics, when we measure it, proves that we are very efficient. But somehow when we switch this button, switch this feature flag, and turn on a feature, it breaks, right? So it's a very interesting domain. And how to do that? How to do this provisioning? We have a lot of different DevOps technical ideas, right, to do it. We have the infrastructure as a code. We have containers, Dockers, orchestration, CI/CD pipelines, all the sexy stuff, right? And that's DevOps common goal, right? Developers producing the code, people from operations maintaining the code, and this gray area over here, it's a common goal of those two groups. So that's why from technology we ended up in the mindset and people aspect, because behind this technology and behind those tickets and those technologies here are the people. So those two groups of people ideally needs to speak together. Operations guys, that was the beginning of the DevOps movement, right? That the operations guys would like to learn from developers how to code. Developers would like to learn how to effectively operate the product. And we have one big happy family, operating our product. Obviously, it's not working that way, but DevOps is going into this direction, not to have a silo here and silo here, and no one is accountable for the middle, or we call DevOps engineers accountable for the middle part. We would like to have people who are keen on one and the second aspect. So that's our sexy stuff, right? They call it, they found this diagram of infinity loop, and obviously, have you seen that? I guess everyone have seen that, right? That's obvious for us. So all the phases of development are there, all the tools that we use, all the sexy stuff, Puppet, Chef, Docker, we use it in Grand Parade. Obviously Git, that's the assumption, Git and Jenkins. So all the sexy stuff, right? But behind it, as I mentioned, there are people. And if people are not in agreement, the tools are actually useless. And that's how I end up in the transformation world, right? Because when we have those silos organization, when we had in Grand Parade back then, like 6 years ago, siloed organization, we wanted to break those silos. And how to break those silos? You need to run the huge transformation project, right? You need to convince your CEO to fund this project. You need to get people on the board and say, hey, from tomorrow we are running big transformation, DevOps transformation, or agile transformation. But what we actually do is like behind the scene of these big transformation programs. We have the state A, a company with the state A, silos, for example, and we have state B, the beautiful, shiny new world that we would like to have. And how to move from one state to the other state. Obviously, 20 years ago, we could tell people, hey, guys, you have to do it from tomorrow. That's it. Not happy? Switch the company. But we know that there is not a culture anymore. I hope that there is no culture anymore like this. So we would like to engage all the people around us, right? Take on the, how to say it in English, take on the journey with us, right? That's a beautiful, shiny expression. So basically, find something for them that they will see, or you guys will see the meaningful work. And there is a state in the middle, because obviously if we have two groups here and we'll say, hey, from tomorrow you will be working together and you need to be together and everything will be fine, don't worry. People will not be like this. So we need to, first things first, find a common ground, the middle step, show them that they shouldn't be afraid of the change because this middle step is actually better for them. So for example, when we have those two groups, development and operations, we can organize them the sessions where they can learn from each other and meet each other first things first, not treat them like, not treat everyone like, just email address when I send the ticket in Jira, but to first things first meet them. And there are 3 steps. Kurt Lewin, there is a guy who invented the 3 steps of introducing the change in the organization. First, he called it unfreezing the organization, so explain to people, hey, we need to change because we are not working effectively right now. Then doing the change in the middle, and then freeze company or freeze structure again, saying, hey, from the day on, we will be working that way. Because in the company, there will be people who don't like new rules, who will not want to work in new rules. So that's the Kurt Lewin model. And that's, the big model, or actually a simple one, but Kurt Lewin invented that. But actually what he did, he observed how people behave, especially in the organization. So this unfreezing, change, and freezing is actually creating, at the beginning, creating climate for change, so showing people benefits from changing the ways of working, then changing it, and then sustaining it, explaining that it's important. And in our company, the first step was really difficult because at the time, back then, we were a Polish company, Polish small software house, like 150 people, and we merged with a huge corporation at that time. So explaining, the 2 different worlds to those 2 different groups was really difficult. Explaining those 100 engineers who felt like working in a startup, hey, we do need to have the procedures in place. They were like, running, shouting, no, I don't want procedures, On the other hand, explaining a huge corporation that, hey, we need to be more flexible and we need to have full CI/CD pipeline, for example, right, was not so easy as well. So that was difficult. Obviously, that's ideal state to have this DevOps at the end or even continuous deployment. That's the ideal state because usually my experience is that, and not only with this company but with my previous companies as well, that everything is shiny and blue, CEOs agree to implement agile practices and then agree, okay, continuous integration, fine, perfect, everything is perfect. And then here is a question from C-level executives usually. Hey, are those guys will be deploying to production without a green light from anyone? No, I don't agree. Yeah? So that's the big challenge. And I'm just thinking if I observed this working, there was one company who had automation deployments to production on a daily basis, but it was very painful to convince, executives to do it. Any one of you have heard or working in a company that has deployments to production without any approvals? Lucky you. We need to talk after the after the presentation how it works. So that's that. So usually executives are present at the beginning because we need to have funding, right? We would like to introduce Agile and DevOps, whatever we call it, and then it will cost this amount of money, right? Or we don't even need to mention about Agile or DevOps, we just will mention about shortening time frame to delivering to production. So usually they give you the money and say, okay, I invest the money, please bring the results. And at the end, they are showing up and say, hey, I gave you the money, but by the way, are you crazy deploying it to production? So you need to engage them on the journey when you create your DevOps DevOps transformation to show them the benefits. So now, I don't have this slide here, but I'm supposed to have slide like, do you really want to know this view, because it's like in a Matrix movie. I guess everyone watched the Matrix. Who didn't watch Matrix movie? Everyone watched. So there was two pills. What were the colors of the pills? Red and green, blue. Red and blue. So I supposed to have this slide, red and blue, and ask you, do you really want to know which one you need to choose? Because showing you C-level perspective will, before I jump into that, do we have any C-level guys here? Not, no. Okay, so it's being recorded, but I can easily say that it is difficult when you see C-levels working together alongside with them and with you guys. Why is difficult? Because they usually don't have a time. They are extremely busy people. They are extremely high-level people, so they are thinking 5 years ahead of now. That's why if they say the culture or strategy or something like this, they know what to talk about, what they are talking about. Versus engineers, how do you react when you hear strategy? That strategic approach. I see smiling faces, right? Strategic approach, what does it mean? And the funny thing is that the vice versa, when I speak with C-level executives, or I had engineers on the meeting with C-level, and the engineers were talking about deployment to the production environment. We're talking about Dockerization and all the fancy stuff, clean code. C-levels were like, what they are talking about? I don't know. So we need to find the common grounds, because you are the guys who have very deep knowledge, very narrow, I mean not narrow, but very focused knowledge. You need to have it to be a good engineers. And these are the guys, executives, who needs to have the broad knowledge, I mean broad focus. So if they run the whole organization, they need to have, they need to take into consideration business, revenue, finance, legal aspects, compliance aspects, and one piece of that is product. Obviously, product brings revenue, so it's the most important, but it's just one piece, right? So when you are very focused on product and technology, they rely on you, but they will not understand you. They need to trust you. So that's that, because that's our word, right? We talked about it. So that's our huge, it's huge actually, to be honest, it's huge, right? Huge scope. If one person would like to do that for the whole company, it's not possible. So we call it DevOps, right? Mindset and technology. And from their perspective, it's like one piece of the organization. And it's even not in central place, it's on the, not in the corner, but not in the central place. Next to DevOps, we have Agile, right? Because if we would like to be Agile, we need to do DevOps and vice versa. It's usually going alongside. So that's the collaboration for them. And they don't even, executives, they don't even want to talk about Agile. That's, I mean, this talk is not about Agile, but it's interesting how executives see Agile people. Or maybe how do you see the Agile people? Or do we have any Agile people in the audience today? No. Define Agile people? People who are into Agile, working in Agile, love Agile, implementing Agile. We have one person, two people, right? Okay, many of you guys. So you know that all the retrospective stuff, all the planning stuff, and everything else, and all the post-its that we have, it's actually really important, right? It's critical. For example, doing a retrospective after a sprint. But on the other hand, that's off topic, by the way, but on the other hand, when I have executives in the room, or I had a situation like this, that I had the executives in Krakow, and I also had Agile gathering for Agile people from the organization. And you know how Agile gathering looks from outside. There are, post-its on the wall, people are happy, people are checking the mood, asking questions, everyone is open, this type of stuff. And on the other room, there were executives, in the suits, with the laptops, calculating the numbers, revenue in the Excel. And there was a production issue appeared. So executives started, calling, running around, hey, revenue is leaking, we have the outage, what to do? And obviously, agile guys, Scrum Masters, agile coaches, they were not accountable, or they were not even engaged in solving the real issue on production, right? So they continued, they knew about that, but they continued the workshops. But executives were like, are those guys crazy? We have production issue and they are putting the post-it and they are just doing some drawing on the walls. Come on, what's going on with those people? So that's the perception. Obviously, I had to explain them, hey, this is agile. It's important for them to plan the sprints and so on. They are not involved directly in the delivery. So the next question was, not involved in the delivery? So why do we pay them? So that's type of conversations that we dive into when we speak about with the executives, because they are focused on revenue. Obviously, that's important because if they will not be focused on revenue, the company will not be existing, right? But we need to think about it from that way. So that's collaboration. So it's important for the company, important for us, but we need to find a good language to explain to executives why those two blocks are important. Then there is a structure. So organizational structure, you do, I guess, but any of you are involved actively in creating the structure of the company, like setting up the teams, planning which team will be where, and so on? Okay, so that's important for executives as well. They usually do that, or the directors below, to plan who is working with whom and how do they interact, right? It's part of it is, for example, silos. How to create departments, because we need to have somehow the structure, how to create department, and on the other hand, don't create silos. And then we have our beloved word, strategy. So usually executives, they talk about strategy. And effectively, strategy means they would like to have a plan how to achieve target revenue in 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. So for us to feel comfortable at work and say, hey, my company is stable, I have my stable position, they need to think ahead and plan how to make this company stable. So that's basically the strategy. And at the end, I call it organizational behavior, because usually when I call it culture, this is the conversation we had at the beginning. So when I call it culture, people are like, oh, what's the culture of the company? So the culture of the company is how we behave. And this is not like how we behave, or it is how we behave on a daily basis with our colleagues, but this is also how we behave as a company, set up the deadlines, how work is executed. Are we comfortable in the setup that deadlines are set up, for example, without estimations? This type of stuff, that's the whole culture, right? There are many, many more aspects, but simplifying that is how we work together. So that's the organization, the full view of executives. And this organization needs to, I was working on this animation the whole night yesterday. Thank you. Inspiring, I know. So this organization needs to go through the transformation. How to transform a huge organization with all those aspects, all the people. That's challenging. And actually, that's yet another animation today. So actually, this transformation is focused on two aspects that I mentioned at the beginning. Mindset and technology. So on one hand, we need to upgrade technology, we need to have funding for the new tools and so on. On the other side, we need to speak with people and explain them, hey, you need to work differently. You will be building the future, but you need to work differently. And it is usually done by building trust. And that's where the most of the companies have the failures. They are not effectively building trust with employees, and employees are not effectively building trust with executives, with the company. By the way, there is no such thing like the company or the group, right? There's always a person behind the company, and that's usually the executive one, executive or all the executives like CTOs, CFOs, and so on. So when you speak with CTO, for example, because today I would like to focus on CTO, you need to show them, build the trust with them, showing two aspects, cognitive aspect of trust and emotional aspect of trust. I have a different talk about trust itself, you can find it on YouTube, but just in a nutshell, trust is built on those two pillars. So what I mean about cognitive. Cognitive is everything that you deliver. So when you speak with your CTO and your CTO sees that you have experience, you have knowledge, you know how to develop Java, you have been doing since 10 years, he or she will trust you. Okay, this guy is capable, he or she will deliver. This is also about thinking logically, thinking analytically. So you need to show that you're brave enough to take new task and do it. Don't be afraid, definitely, in front of CTO. He is looking or she is looking for someone who he or she can trust to. So that's one pillar, and the other pillar is cognitive aspect, and cognitive is more, sorry, not cognitive, but emotional, is more human aspect of things. So if you see the person, you, even subconsciously, your brain scans the reality and check, okay, can I trust this person and speak with him or her? Can I trust this person? Oh, it's better to avoid this person because I don't want to be in trouble, right? So when you have the attitude of being open, being honest, you deliver what you've committed to. You make sure that you listen carefully. You are, I would say, in integrity. So your actions follow your words. If you say something, you do it. Then executives and CTO will trust you. And having just one pillar, this one or the other, is not good enough, because you can be open and honest and be trustworthy, but if you don't have the knowledge, CTO will say, hey, that's a nice guy, but by the way, he doesn't know how to program Java, right? So I will not give this special task for him. And also, when we have person like Simon Sinek says, it's usually the people who are assholes. So extremely superstar, great knowledge, perfect experience, but without any human openness and any sort of establishing trust on this emotional level, we usually have people who would like to work on their own, don't pay attention to others, and that's also not helping building trust. I mean, you will not build trust with CTOs, with anyone. So you need to have those two pillars. And what happens if we don't have those two pillars? One more thing, because that was how to build the trust with CTOs, to CTO to trust you. But also CTO, and that's a separate topic and separate talk, has to build trust with you. So you need to trust CTO. That's why they run all the surveys, they run all the town halls to show you guys that they are trying to build a trust. It's difficult sometimes, I agree, to build trust with the whole company, but CTOs, especially CTOs, need to build trust with engineers. Because engineers, at the end of the day, if they don't trust CTO, what they do? They leave, right? They say, oh no, I don't want to work in such company. So that's mutual effect. And if this mutual effect is not in place, we have something like this iceberg of ignorance. So they did a research and found out that on the bottom we have problems, right? And those problems could be escalated on the top, saying to the top executive, saying, hey, we have a problem over here, you need to fix that. But it's not happening like this. So they measured that only 4% of the problems are visible to executives. Why? Because of the lack of trust. Because we are here, right, engineers, we know every pain point. But when we don't have the trust with the team leaders, even if we do have trust, we tell them, hey, by the way, we have problem over here. But we don't tell usually everything to them. So some of the problems are not visible for team leaders. And team leaders do this selection as well, the same to the upper level, to the managers, managers to heads of to executives, and that's how it propagates. So every time I speak with executives, I tell them, hey, look, if you feel you know what's going on in the company, look on this effect. Okay, so if we know that, what the CTOs or CEOs, but CTOs more precisely, need from you guys? We have here the 4 dimensions that I mentioned before. The first one is culture, so organization behavior. So why do they need to establish the culture? Why do they need to talk about culture? Why do they need to involve you on the culture? Because, and by the way, that's the whole debate about being in the office. Is there anyone who needs to be in the office 100% of time? Good. 50% of time in the office? I'm just out of curiosity. 50% of time in the office? Okay. 30% of time in the office? 20%? I thought that we have flexible policy because we have 20% from the office and 80% from home. Sorry? That's the whole beauty of the conferences, right? Yeah, but definitely, if they tell you, hey, we need to come back to the office to build the culture, to build the bonds together, they actually have a need behind that. So this is not just like, hey, I need to have people in the office to, I don't know, to just sit and be happy. I have a bigger need as a C-level executive to have people in the office. For example, in Grand Parade, in Evoke, we have 20% from the office, so one week. But usually we don't track it on the weekly basis, we collect them. So usually when the planning or retrospective, people are showing up in the office. Why is that? Because I or the executives have the need of presence of other people. Because imagine, on the executive level, we are very alone. There's no, first things first, there's no many people in this executive team, and talking about CEO is like just one person. He or she has everything on her back, needs to run the company, usually needs to answer tough questions, obviously have proper remuneration for that, right? But from the human perspective, that's usually people usually alone. So if I'm in the office, by the way, I'm in the office every day, but because of my role as well, but because of the location where I live, that's convenient. So if I'm in the office and I have my boss calling in and say, hey, we have the issue there, what's going on, could you help me? And I have people who can rely on and easily, reach out to, it's easier for me, right? Obviously, I'm not saying that I force people to come to the office, right? But I'm just showing you the perspective that, for example, my team usually knows that it's easier for me, I need them, right? It's not just like I want to have them in the office just because of that. I would like to have their support. And CTOs especially, I can tell you that there is, in the organization usually there is one role. If you have this role, you are the most important in the company. There is no title of this role. You can be just pure software engineer and have this role with your CTO. So the role is basically based on trust. CTO usually gets some random questions from the board above, saying, hey, we need to try this one. This will bring the revenue. Can you show it to me? And what CTOs can do? They can go to the agile team, saying, hey, I have some new requirements. Could you put it to the sprint backlog? Could you estimate that? and then could you try to do it first iteration and show it how it works? And then just after 2 weeks, hopefully, or I guess even more, the CTO, the team is coming back to CTO, and CTO can come back to the board and say, hey, you know, this is the solution you asked 1 month ago. In the business, it doesn't work that way. Imagine yourself owning the company. If you own the company, anyone here who owns the company, like even small, 1, 2, 3, 4 people. So if you own the company, you usually want to have results right away. So what CTO is doing? He or she has one trustful person, very technical person who has those 2 pillars that I mentioned. And going directly to him, saying, hey, by the way, next 4 days you are not going to work in the sprints. I will tell you, explain this to management and the other people. I have the special request for you. Could you help me with developing this one? And this guy, you know, magic happens. Obviously, that's not sustainable solution, but that's proof of concept. This person is out of the team for a couple of days, coding all the time, like 8 hours of coding, producing within very short amount of time solution, the proof of concept to the CTO. Then CTO goes after 3 days, 2 days, 4 days to the board, showing them the results, and that's different conversation, right? CTO is happy, board is happy. This engineer is actually very happy, right? Because what we strive for as engineers, to program. We are usually not happy that we have many meetings and so on. Obviously, this solution, if that's proved, needs to go through the proper life cycle and have proper requirements and so on. But I'm showing you that if the CTO has this trust and has the support, has this back in this person is not touchable in the company. So I wish you to be this guy. From the strategy perspective, why do they talk about strategy? They talk about strategy because they have the need to achieve something. Obviously, they have the role to lead the organization to achieve something, but very deeply in their personalities, they have a need to achieve something. They would like to achieve something, so they would like to show as well, but see how I will achieve something for the next 5 years. So that's why they create all the strategy. To discover as well, so they would like to find out new solutions which are not in the market right now, the new technologies which are not in the market right now. So that's that. And they would like to know where they are heading to. So they would like to be predictable. And if instead of, you know, just expecting from them that they will show you the strategy or even don't listen to them, you will help them how the world will be looking like for not even 5 years, but 2 years from now, if AI will replace all of us. If you will have this view and explain it to CTO, that will be also very beneficial. In the structure piece, why do they, sometimes we call it that they are just playing Excel and those names and the structures, putting this team here and this team here. Why do they do that? They actually do that because they are seeking for consistency and stability and clarity. If there is a structure, if there is a guy in this department, heading this department, I can rely on him or her, there is a structure, I'm happy, right? I feel safe. Also, I can tell you from the experience that usually if they seek for consistency, they have biases like this that they can cluster teams that they completely separate, but just the naming convention is the same. For example, in my organization, there was a central team called Central Platform Team, and they were doing some platform stuff for the whole organization. And then we had the department, and in this department there was a platform team doing completely different thing, but we just called them platform. And the CTO I was working with told me, hey, Tomasz, you need to change the name of this team. I say, why? It's working, it's perfect, everyone is happy. And he said, no. If those guys up there will see the central platform here and the platform team here, you will lose the team because they will merge those teams together. Because they have the shortcut, right? That there's a platform, they don't have a time to deep very deeply into the details what they are going on, they will just merge the teams. So this is type of the example how they need to make shortcuts and what are the biases. And the last thing is the collaboration. So why do they need to have people to collaborate? Why they organize town halls? Town halls is just more listening, but the workshops, sometimes we have the workshops with C-level executives in the company. Because they are seeking for collaboration as well, because to achieve all the aspects that they would like to achieve, they need people. And if they are on the call with people, it's not so much collaborative, right? Despite all the fancy stuff like Mural, Miro, and so on. So they feel actually when they belong to the organization, when they have face-to-face event with people. So that's give the context. Obviously, I'm not saying that right now all of us needs to be every time in the office, but to give you the context that being in the office with your directors, managers, executives, it's actually very valuable for you guys and for them as well. So at the end, I would like to give you a pro tips very quickly. How to move this Docker, and I'm not saying about this Docker, I'm more saying about this Docker. So the organization, big or small, is like a Docker. And to change everyone's behavior on the ways of working, when you change everyone's ways of working, you will change the organization. So how to do that? First things first, build the trust, as I mentioned, with the crew and with the skipper. So with C-level guys and with your team. If you will be the one establishing trust, people will follow you because they will see, hey, I see that this guy believes in the vision that this company has. The other thing is know your coordinates. So create a map where the organization is heading to. That's the first map, is a strategy, but then understand the strategy and create your map of your team, your department, how you would like to contribute to the strategy. That's critical because then you will understand what's going on and how you can help people. Keep the full steam. Usually people who are in transformation, who are in the changing mode, they are unmotivated. They are not happy. They are complaining. And that's fine. That's different talk again, but that's natural, normal phase of introducing a change. And if you find yourself motivation to engage, to keep them motivated and to help them, you will be recognized in the company, definitely, because C-level guys are looking for such people. Be brave and vocal, so do not be afraid of C-levels. They may sometimes feel like pushy, but at the end of the day, look on them like on the alone people who need to drive this organization and they are desperate to drive it. And don't be afraid. And be a tugboat. I like this picture because it shows a huge Docker over here. And you know that in the port, when the Docker is going into the port, there are a lot of tugboats which steers them and push this Docker. So if you will be one of them steering the organization, you can have a huge influence and impact of the organization. Not maybe visible from the day one, but definitely you will be moving the organization forward. At the same time, as engineers, we need to stabilize the systems. So for example, talking about transformation is one thing, but systems need to work, right? We don't need to have the outages on production because we will be having troubles, right? So you need to know the technology stack and stabilize it, not maybe to experiment with a very fancy, not tested technology, but providing stability in that times. And also knows the limitations of our technology and our systems. Things like performance tests, loads test, all those kind of stuff, doing before going into the transformation will also help. Look behind the horizon, so I mentioned about that. Think about 1 year, 2 years from now, how, for example, AI will, what will be the role of AI in our company. And be captain of your own teams. Who of you have the teams? And the leaders? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, couple of leaders, yeah. So you have the accountability of the teams to be a captain, but then you can find people who will be with you. If you are the individual contributor in the team, doesn't matter. You can also be informal leader because usually team will be unmotivated while introducing the change. You could be the one driving them. Know the other ship constructions, so know the other companies, what they are doing, how the transformation was in Netflix, how in Spotify, all these fancy stories from the industry. And at the end, I would like to leave you with this quotation, which I really like. I will read it for you. The wind and the waves are always on the side of the ablest navigator. And I use it, I paraphrase it in the organizations, that organizational changes are always on the side of the ablest engineers who can help the organization. Thank you very much for today, and I wish you the best conference.